On October 21st, 1600, at a mountain valley in central Japan called Sekigahara, the largest battle in Japanese history was fought. On one side, the Eastern coalition led by Tokugawa Ieyasu, a lord from the Kanto region who had spent most of his adult life serving more powerful men. On the other side, the Western coalition, fighting for the Toyotomi family. The heirs of Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the man who had unified Japan 12 years before, and who had died leaving behind a 5-year-old son. The battle lasted 1 day. Tokugawa Ieyasu won. He was 57 years old. He had spent roughly 40 years watching, waiting, surviving, and positioning himself for exactly this moment. He had served as a hostage in his childhood. He had watched 2 more powerful men unify Japan. He had obeyed when he had to obey, and moved when the moment came. The following year, he was appointed Shogun. Japan would be ruled by his family for 265 years. This is the story of the most patient man in Japanese history, and what that patience cost. Tokugawa Ieyasu was born in 1543 as Matsudaira Takechiyo in a small domain in the Mikawa region of central Japan. His father's domain was caught between 2 larger powers, the Imagawa clan to the east and the Oda clan to the west. In exchange for Imagawa military protection, the Matsudaira sent something more valuable than troops, their heir. At age 6, the future Tokugawa Ieyasu was sent as a hostage to the Imagawa. He was captured in the transit by Oda forces and held for 3 years by Oda Nobunaga. Not mistreated, but a child hostage in an enemy's castle. When Oda Nobunaga died, he was transferred to the Imagawa, where he spent the next 12 years as a ward of the Imagawa clan. He was educated. He was trained as a warrior. He was treated reasonably. And he was not, in any meaningful sense, free. In 1560, everything changed. Imagawa Yoshimoto, the most powerful lord in eastern Japan, marched toward Kyoto with 25,000 men. He stopped at a narrow pass called Okehazama during a rainstorm. Oda Nobunaga, with 2,000 men, attacked. Imagawa Yoshimoto was killed in the surprise assault. The Imagawa domain collapsed. The 17-year-old Matsudaira Takechiyo was suddenly free. Tokugawa Ieyasu, the name he would later take, allied with Oda Nobunaga. This alliance would shape the next 2 decades of his life. Nobunaga was the most aggressive military figure in Japan. Brilliant, ruthless, relentlessly expanding. Ieyasu was his eastern ally, controlling the Mikawa and later Totomi regions, fighting campaigns on his flank. The partnership worked because they were genuinely compatible strategically. Nobunaga drove west, toward Kyoto and control of the imperial court, while Ieyasu handled the east. They fought together against the massive Buddhist temple confederation at Mount Hiei, which Nobunaga destroyed. They fought together against the military genius Takeda Shingen, one of the few commanders who actually defeated Ieyasu in the field. Ieyasu was not Nobunaga's equal. He was the junior partner. But he was indispensable, reliable, and steadily building his own power base. In 1582, Oda Nobunaga was assassinated by one of his own generals, Akechi Mitsuhide, at the Honnoji Temple in Kyoto. At the time, Ieyasu was in a vulnerable position, traveling through territory far from his own domain, with a small escort. His first instinct was survival. He made his way home through hostile territory, losing a son in the process. Then he watched. The man who avenged Nobunaga's death was Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Hideyoshi was Nobunaga's most talented general. A man of extraordinarily low birth, the son of a peasant who had risen through ability alone to command. Within weeks of Nobunaga's death, he had defeated Akechi Mitsuhide and positioned himself as Nobunaga's successor. Ieyasu competed briefly for that succession. He won some battles. Then he negotiated. In 1586, Ieyasu formally submitted to Hideyoshi's authority. He did not have to. He chose to, calculating that resistance would be costly and that submission at the right moment with the right terms would preserve everything he had built. Hideyoshi trusted Ieyasu enough to give him an enormous and counterintuitive assignment. Relocate from his existing domains in central Japan to the Kanto region in the east, around a small fishing settlement called Edo. The Kanto was larger than what Ieyasu had, but it was underdeveloped, far from the centers of power, and required starting from scratch. Ieyasu took it and built. He developed Edo systematically. Infrastructure, agriculture, flood control. When he was done, his new domain was one of the wealthiest in Japan. Hideyoshi died in 1598. He left behind a 5-year-old son, Hideyori, and a council of 5 regents to govern until the boy came of age. Ieyasu was one of the 5. Almost immediately, he began positioning. He made marriage alliances with other lords, something the council had agreed not to do. He met privately with daimyo, who were supposed to report to the council collectively. He accumulated obligations and loyalties. The Western lords, loyal to the Toyotomi family, were outraged. Tensions within the council fractured into open conflict. By 1600, Japan was dividing into 2 camps. Eastern lords rallied to Ieyasu. Western lords, led by the administrator Ishida Mitsunari, organized around protecting the Toyotomi heir. Both sides knew a military confrontation was coming. Sekigahara was where it happened. The Battle of Sekigahara on October 21st, 1600, lasted less than 6 hours from the first engagement to the final rout. The Western coalition had approximately 80,000 men. Ieyasu's Eastern coalition had approximately 75,000. On paper, the Western side had advantages in position and numbers. Then one of the Western lords, Kobayakawa Hideaki, switched sides. Whether this was genuine defection, bribery, or tactical cowardice has been debated ever since. Some accounts claim that Ieyasu, uncertain whether Kobayakawa would switch, actually fired warning shots at his position. A calculated gamble to force a decision. Whatever the reason, the Western coalition collapsed. The battle ended in complete Eastern victory. In the aftermath, the losers were executed or forced to suicide. Territories were redistributed. Ieyasu had consolidated more power in one afternoon than most men accumulate in a lifetime. In 1603, Tokugawa Ieyasu was appointed shogun by the imperial court. He was 60 years old. 2 years later, he abdicated in favor of his son, Hidetada, deliberately demonstrating to all of Japan that the Tokugawa shogunate would be hereditary, not personal. But one problem remained. Toyotomi Hideyori, Hideyoshi's son, was still alive. He was growing up in Osaka Castle, surrounded by loyalists who had never accepted Tokugawa rule. In 1614 and 1615, Ieyasu besieged Osaka in 2 campaigns. The second ended with Osaka Castle falling and Hideyori's death. The last competitor was gone. Ieyasu died in June 1616, at age 73, having lived to see the Tokugawa shogunate firmly established. The shogunate he built would rule Japan for 265 years, ending only in 1868 with the Meiji Restoration. During much of that period, Japan practiced sakoku, a policy of near-total national isolation. No Japanese could leave without permission. Foreign merchants were restricted to a single trading post in Nagasaki. The policy was formalized by Ieyasu's successors, but the instinct was his. Japan would be controlled, ordered, and closed. Tokugawa Ieyasu is, by any measure, one of the most consequential rulers in Japanese history. He established the longest-lasting peace Japan had experienced. The Edo period, from 1603 to 1868, is often called the Great Peace. Population grew. Arts and culture flourished. Cities expanded. Japan was stable in ways it had not been for a century. He was also a man who closed his country to the world for 250 years. The isolation that followed his ascent cut Japan off from developments in science, medicine, and political philosophy that would eventually force a reckoning. The forced opening by American warships in 1853 that led to the Meiji Restoration and Japan's rapid, sometimes violent modernization. Was the isolation a choice of wisdom or of fear? Was the Edo peace worth the price of falling behind? These are questions Japan has been arguing since 1868. What is not argued? The waiting worked. The man who watched two rulers build Japan served them both, and then took what they had built, and kept it for longer than either of them could have managed. He understood something they did not, that patience is a strategy. This is the Dragon Throne. He was a hostage at 6, a junior ally at 17, a patient servant for 40 years. At 57, he moved. Japan did not recover from it for 265 years. Subscribe for more. New episodes every week.